Hello and welcome to the Dysfunktion podcast. I'm Drew Lovett and joining me as always, my good friend Toby Allen. How you doing, man?
Very well, thank you very much.
Good to be back.
Recovering from the Formula One.
Yeah, that's true. That was pretty insane. I don't know where to begin with this one. We've got an incredibly special guest joining us on our pokey little podcast, and we are absolutely honoured to have him, Christian Smith.
Hello. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. A little bit tired, but could be worse.
Yeah, you had a monster kind of travel session today, flying from Sydney to Dubai.
Yes, but I managed to sleep a lot, and now I'm having a glass of wine. That should help the system.
That's always good, huh? It's always the way to start.
That's right.
So you're in town because you're coming to play for us for Dysfunktion.
That's correct.
And we asked you to come on the show here, do the podcast, so we can get your story, find out a little bit more about you before you come and play, and hopefully the people who listen will learn a little bit more about who Christian Smith is and how you got to where you are today.
All right. So let's do it.
Where do we start? Way back, right? Right at the beginning.
Always way back.
Way back.
Where are you from? Straight question.
Okay.
Which is also confusing because no one seems to know, right?
Yeah. You're not going to get a straight answer.
Yeah.
I am half Swedish, half Norwegian, but I grew up in Germany and I lived all over. I lived in America for over 10 years, lived in New York, lived in Barcelona, lived in Sao Paulo, Brazil for a couple of years, and now I live in Spain, in Palma de Mallorca. I started DJing as a hobby when I was 14 years old, and I continued DJing always as a hobby throughout university. And while I was at university studying finance, I produced a couple of records that became successful. And back then, DJs such as Carl Cox, Dave Angel, and DJ Sneak were playing those tracks. And from one day to another, I suddenly had booking requests in Japan and in Australia. This was in the late 90s. And I said, wow, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to give it a shot. And this was while I was in graduate school, right about to graduate from graduate school.
What were you studying?
I was getting a master's in economics and finance. And I was about to finish, but then I suddenly got all these booking requests and I said, okay, I'm not going to finish. I'm just going to do this. And my dad, of course, was not very happy because he was the one financing my studies.
Sure, I know.
But you know what? As long as I stopped asking him for money, everything was fine.
And so what was the plan then with this, the finance and economics degree? Where were you going to go with it?
To be completely honest, I never really had a clear vision of what I wanted to do with my life. So I thought, hey, making money is a good way forward.
Okay.
But I did work in finance for a year and a half or 2 years in corporate finance as an investment banker, and I absolutely hated it. and I thought, what am I going to do? What's my way out of this world? So I decided to go back to school and get enrolled in a master's program. And this is when it happened with my music, that it just took off and I got really lucky.
Can I ask, you were brought up originally, as you say, Sweden and Norwegian. Is that right, or you were born in...
I was, my father's Norwegian, my mother's Swedish. But I grew up, I spent most of my childhood in Germany.
Until what age was that?
Until I was 16.
16, okay, so this is where the first influences were coming. Was there any musical background with your father or your mother?
My parents definitely are not very musical, but I have an older sister and an older brother, and they used to go to this club called Dorian Gray, which was at the Frankfurt airport. It was a club that opened in the 70s and closed, I think, around 2000, and it was a legendary club, and it was built inside the airport. And it was they shut at 3 or 4 in the afternoon, so it was a proper nightclub. And they brought home those mixtapes back in those days. They bought it from the DJs, or they exchanged God knows what for these mixtapes. And and I was a kid back then. I was like 8 or 10 years old, listening to these tapes. And these tapes were mixed by Sven Feth, partly some of them, when he was like 22 or 24 years old, a youngster.
Wow.
Anyways, I listened to these tapes over and over when I was 8 or 10 years old, and that was when I got the electronic, bug.
So. Did you? I mean, like myself, did you know there was something about that electronic sound that drew you towards it rather than what was on the radio or bands or, you know?
Yes and no. I mean, like back then I listened to these tapes and I loved them, but at the same time I also listened to a lot of black music, a lot of funk and soul, and that I got from an American radio station that I listened to in Germany. So and that was kind of pop music, but back in the 80s, pop music, I don't want to say it was better, but yes, it was definitely better than it is today.
I think it was.
Back then you had stuff like, I don't know, Depeche Mode, Sade, and now you have Afrojack. Yeah. It's two different things.
Absolutely. Well, it's just completely gone way too commercial, though, hasn't it? Now it's a money-making machine rather than people still doing, what they do for a love of music. But it's just.
Back then it was commercial too, but it was much more thoughts behind it, and you needed to be a musician, to release records. That has completely changed now.
Absolutely.
Now you need to have the look, the muscles, and the marketing machine.
Yeah. So you're getting these. You make these first few tracks, and people are playing them around the world, and then you're getting booked. I mean, what does that feel like? I mean, because that's got to be when you're that young. You're just coming out of university.
Is this about 18, 19 years old? 20 years old?
I was around 21 because I was in graduate school.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it was incredible because imagine you're a hobby producer. You release on a few labels that are known and popular at the moment, but you suddenly get booking requests in Australia and Japan. Those were my two first requests, were tours in Australia and Japan. And I was in Sweden at university, and I was like, wow, this is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And so and then suddenly it became more local, like in France and in Spain, and it happened really, really fast for me. I released a couple of records, and within 6 months, even 3 months, I had a full booking schedule, and making decent money actually too. I mean, like I went from nothing to making a good amount of money really fast.
How did you get on? Because as you said, releasing a record today is a lot different from how it was 10, 20 years ago. How did you get to that point where you had some records and you wanted to release it at that time?
Yeah, where did the making start? Can I just add that? Where's the producing side of things come in here? You're DJing, but who did you make? Were you at home? Did you have a sound engineer?
Yeah. No, I the first couple of records I made by myself at home. In my home studio.
And on what?
But I had proper synthesizers. I had an Akai S950 sampler.
Excellent.
I had a Prophet 5 synthesizer. I had a bunch of synths, a couple of effect units, but everything hardware, of course. This was the pre-computer days. Yeah. I did use a computer, but just to sequence the tracks. Mm-hmm. That's it. Yeah. I mean, back then it was very costly to have a studio.
Of course.
But I didn't have a fancy studio. It was good enough. And then I produced a few tracks. They were successful. Then I collaborated with a good friend, John Selway, who is from New York. And it was also just, I suddenly managed to have a good career doing my hobby, which was,
How was
amazing.
the process of getting signed? Now you're a label owner. How was the process of being signed as a 21-year-old, sending these tracks on Differ to nowadays?
I think in many ways it's the same now as it was back then. You need to know people. Yeah. You need to have connections, because if you want to release on a popular, successful label, they're going to be inundated with demos. I have my own label, Tronic, and I get around 100 demos a week, and I maybe listen to 7 to 10 of them. So it's very, very difficult to get your recognition. Yeah. But as soon as you have a record out that is successful, then suddenly, of course, everybody takes it seriously and will listen to your music as soon as you send it to them.
Then how did you get those first few records? How did you get it in the hands of? What were they actually, by the way? What labels were they on? Can you remember?
Yeah, I mean, one was actually on my own label, Tronic, and it was called Gold Rush, and it did really well. Another one was on a Swedish label called, Loop Records. It's defunct now. And another one was on Primate, and another one was on Rotation. So lots of English labels, English and Swedish labels.
English, German, techno. Primate, nice.
And
Can I ask, what do you mark? What is the mark of success for a track? Because if I'm not mistaken, and please quote me, I think you'll know this a bit more, but 400 or 500, 600 on Beatport is pretty much is quite high sales nowadays. What would you class as mark of success back in the day? Because it was on 12 inches, and obviously
in terms of numbers,
yeah, in numbers.
I mean, a successful record was around 3,000. Starts at 2,000 to 3,000. Vinyl. Yeah. And then made some good money with it. And if you have a big success, 5,000. If you have a huge one, it's over 10,000. And this happened quite frequently back in the days.
Not anymore though.
So nowadays with Beatport, if I'm not mistaken,
much more? Yeah.
It's a lot less to be on number ones on Beatport.
It's a lot less, and it's much more difficult too. Also, with regards to vinyl, I still press vinyl once in a while, but back in the days I sold 3,000 units. Now I sell 300 units.
Yeah.
And this has nothing to be with me, or let's say if I would do 300 units, Adam Bayer would do 300 units.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Everybody sells around 300 to 500 units, or less.
Yeah.
So the vinyl market is not dead, but it's almost dead.
Yeah.
It's just, to release records these days is just an affirmation of you want to be cool, I guess.
Well, yeah.
You want to show that you're still doing it.
You're doing what you love, right? And you want to make your own records, but it's not to make a living anymore like it used to be.
Definitely not.
That's what's changed. And do you think the reason for that is, online piracy and copying and stuff like that, or do you think people are just not buying records like they used to?
Well, obviously
certainly more DJs now, right? So.
Obviously, records have been replaced by digital files.
Yeah.
That's something we can not avoid. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
I play digitally. 99% of the DJs play digitally, whether it's with a computer or USB. And having said that, my label this year had the biggest year ever in terms of sales. So Tronic sold around 55,000 downloads just on Beatport, which is,
I think most of those were me, actually.
No, which is around 4,000 or 5,000 a month, which is pretty good. But like you said earlier, it's much more difficult to sell high amount of downloads these days as it was just a couple of years ago. Why? Because Beatport has over 4,000 releases every week.
I thought it was double that, but that's 4,000, is it?
Yeah, and let's face it, you need to have a banner, or you need to get, or you need to have a lot of subscribers, lots of fans on Beatport to even stand a chance to sell a couple of hundred. So it's difficult.
It's a tough game, isn't it?
It really is.
And it's a labour of love at times. I
mean, to be honest, I never really made money with my own music. I've had very successful...
But the gigs will come from it.
I've had very successful releases, but I always looked at music as a global business card to get me gigs around the world.
There we go, yeah.
And not much has changed there, has it really? I mean, even today, like you mentioned to me in Amsterdam a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of months ago, to get gigs, you need to have releases as a DJ now. You can't go like so many DJs did before, just go and be a DJ, and there was always a separation between producer and DJ actually for a long time, because a lot of producers weren't good DJs and some DJs weren't good producers. So the two had a symbiosis, right, and they worked together. But those days are gone.
I remember very vividly a conversation I had with a friend back in Cape Town, as I mentioned to you, years ago, in around the 2000 mark, and a certain German DJ was produced very good music, and it wasn't doing too well behind the decks, and having a conversation about, are you a DJ that can make music, or are you a producer that now DJs? And it literally is nowadays, I think it's a complete reverse. In the olden days, in the 90s, no DJs were making, I don't mean none at all, but in general, your top 50 DJs in the DJ chart were not producing as a regular basis.
Certainly not very much.
They were doing the gigs. You're talking about your Pete Tongs, your Judge Georges, your Graham Golds, all that type of thing.
Your Carl Coxes.
Carl Cox, exactly.
Sven
exactly.
Same thing.
Sven
now
did one album, I think, Ritual of Life or Carrot something.
He has done a few albums. Carl Cox also has done a few albums, but they're not producers.
No.
They're DJs.
Yeah,
and if you ask them, they will say the same.
Absolutely.
And so nowadays, it's just exactly it. How do I get gigs? making music at 18.
I mean, there used to be, like you said, there used to be a lot of DJs that got successful just being a DJ and being good at that trade. But now it's impossible. You know, it's really
rarely,
impossible. I'm just trying to think. There's one guy that Ben UFO. I think he's not a producer, but he's like 1 out of a million that has become successful, not without having successful records.
Do you like it this way around now, or did you prefer it kind of 15 years ago when you could just be a DJ or could just be a producer?
I don't know. I don't really have an opinion on that because I enjoy doing both.
Yeah.
So for me, they both go hand in hand.
Nothing's changed for you, I suppose.
No, for me, no. And in a way, it's a shame that some DJs are absolutely amazing, but they don't stand a chance because they don't produce.
Yeah.
But hey, that's the name of the game. You know, it's like the business model has changed. And we need to adapt, and we need to look forward and do our best, and and do what we're passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I sort of change tact a bit? And you mentioned that you've been around the world a bit. Can you tell us America? You said you'd lived there for a bit.
Yes,
what were you doing there?
I did. I went to university there. Actually, I finished high school in America, so the last 2 years. And then I went to university there, did 4 years university.
So this is this is before...
Before Sweden, before I became a full-time DJ.
Right.
And while I went to university, actually, I met Ali, Dubfire, and Sharam, before they were Deep Dish. So I've known these guys a long time, because they're from Washington, D.C., that's where I went to university.
Sure.
And I DJ'd in warehouse parties back then. It was quite fun. Because they used to have a very successful rave scene on the East Coast in Washington, D.C., in Baltimore, and in New York. And I played at these warehouse parties for around 1,000 to 2,000 people, totally illegal, with artists such as Josh Wink. And I remember I was always envious of Josh Wink because he got paid, I got paid $150 for my DJ gig, and he got $200. So I was like, "Oh, you're getting $50 more." And back then, you had to take yourself to the gigs. There was no hotel paid for, nothing. And those are the really raw days.
We still have to take ourselves to gigs and still.
But when you live where you play, it's okay.
Yeah, I know.
But let's say when you have to drive 4 hours and then you have to play your gig and drive 4 hours back.
Yeah, there's no hotel. Have to do.
No hotel.
Those are not the
motorways that with the sun rising.
Those are not the glamorous days, but those are the days of passion. It's
exactly.
Like you do what you love, and it was really amazing. It's just everything has changed now, and yeah.
Well, I suppose back then as well, you wouldn't probably be that interested in going back to a hotel after your gig. It'd be on to the next party, like we all were when we were that young.
You've travelled, as just mentioned. How do you see electronica dance music differ, or is the same? Are we all on one dance floor around all the continents or the countries that you played at?
It really depends. I mean, different markets have different sounds and different crowds. It also depends on the rules of the clubs. Alcohol laws, drug laws. They all have an impact on the crowd, of course. Say Middle East is very strict on those things. South America is not. And
is it a free for all though?
No, of course it's not legal, but
but it's you can tell that it's a free for all, meaning
it's a lot more accepted, open.
Yeah, I mean, like in Europe as well. I mean, if you go to Spain or Italy, there's it's more people are on something than not. Yeah, it's a fact. I personally don't do anything. I drink, but it's quite interesting. For example, Japan is another place where people, they barely take any drugs. It's very, very few people take drugs in the club, and the crowds are amazing. They're really passionate. They scream the whole time. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
And then you go to Italy, and you see people eyeballs just rolling back and forth. That's not always the nicest thing to look at.
No.
Musically, is it you champion techno? Let's say
yes, yeah.
Sort of techno, we'll go down that. Does the techno differ? You know that you've got to change your subgenre because I'm going to Argentina, then going into Australia or whatever.
You know what? I used to adjust my sets a lot. When I traveled throughout the last 15 years, according to where I went. But in the last 2 years, I decided that I wasn't going to do it so much anymore. At first I thought, yeah, but that's maybe a little bit egotistical way of thinking, because at the end of the day, you're hired to entertain the crowd. But I also find as a DJ, it's my job to play what I'm passionate about and educate the people at the same time while entertaining them. So now I still adjust a little bit. If I see that I'm playing in front of a really commercial crowd, I'm not going to play my most underground techno set. I'm not stupid. Yeah. But I will still play a lot of my trademark sound. I will not change my set to like a cheesy tech house set just because there's lots of people drinking champagne. I'm just not going to do that anymore. And I feel really happy about that. I feel really satisfied the way things have gone.
I think that's the sign of a great DJ, isn't it? Or a great artist, really, is that you can adjust your stuff enough. Not so much that it changes who you are and your brand of music, but you're wise enough to be able to change it when you need to.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's all it is. It's, I wanted to talk about something quickly that I am, subject I'm very fond of, or track I'm very fond of. You mentioned John Selway earlier, and a little while ago you guys produced a track called Total Departure, which I think is probably my most played track ever. All the various mixes and remixes are the most recent ones, and I think if I'm not mistaken, there's a part of that appeared in Weber's Awkward Vacation on this one.
He used the same
sound,
plugin.
right?
He used the same plugin in the background. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So I spotted that one. That's a great track as well from Weber.
Yes.
That sound and this what appears to be this constantly rising sound for 9 minutes. Just when I first heard it, blew me away. How do you make something like that? What is? Take us through the process of that, if you don't mind.
I mean, it's really funny you should mention that, because this track came out on Drum Code in 2008. And 2008, they had this big minimal wave all around the world. I mean, like Richie Houghton was going really minimal, 122 BPM, minimal house, and this track just went right the opposite direction. Yeah. It was full on techno. John Selwyn and I were sitting in the studio. We found this plugin, and we were just intrigued by it. It's like, how can somebody come up with a sound that just keeps on rising and rising and rising?
Never
it's
ends.
Amazing. So we decided, hey, let's make a track totally devoted to this sound, build a fat groove around it, distort the sound, and make people go absolutely mental on the dance floor with that. Yeah. So he did this track, we sent it to Adam Bayer, he signed it on the spot, and it became a big hit. Yeah. I mean, like it sold a lot, and it's not just the fact that it sold a lot, but everybody was playing it.
Yeah.
From different genres, house DJs, tech house DJs, as well as techno DJs.
Yeah.
And this was really cool because this was a time when minimal was really popular, yet a techno track managed to fight itself through the ranks of whatever was popular at the moment.
And it stood the test of time. I mean, still going out. When was it? Almost 2008, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so 8 years ago, and still being remixed today.
Yeah,
and still being released.
And to be honest, when I do play it, I tend to play the original, and it still works.
Yeah, and they all work. I mean, that it's just it. Like I said, it blew my mind, and I think, you've made many fantastic tracks that I love, but that one really stands out for me, and
it's arguably one of the most unique tracks I've made, and I'm also very pleased with the outcome, because it's something we did just straight out of passion. We couldn't care less at that point what was popular around us, and we just did what we liked, and it worked out.
Oh, it was completely original, and like you said, at the time just blew everyone away because no one was making stuff like that,
Yeah.
And hopefully there'll be more like that in the future. I can't wait to hear.
What sounds are doing it for you at the moment?
There's no sounds in particular, but there's certain plugins and certain synthesizers that I like a lot. For example, in terms of plugins, I use Arturia plugins a lot. The Mini Moog plugin, the Jupiter 8 plugin. They've recently revamped all of their sounds, and it's even fatter than it used to be before, so I'm really happy with Arturia. Mm-hmm. I also really like Dave Smith instruments. Dave Smith was the guy behind Prophet, the sequential circuits, and who made a new Prophet now recently. I just got that, and it's full analog. It's amazing. I really like that.
Things like, are there any toys that secret weapons that you use? Things like Richie Hawtin's come out with a new mixer. Is there anything that you're privileged to know about, or to make a different sound? Or is it? Do you know of anything?
Not really. I just try to keep on refining my sound and evolving as an artist. I'm not really a person looking to reinvent the wheel, to come up with my own equipment. I'm just a very happy artist doing what I love. Just making the music that I'm inspired by, and being able to make a living doing this.
Can I ask that inspiration? Where does that come from? Is that in the heart when you just get in front of it? Is there a specific, do you hear anything out in a club and then think, I'm going to go and try and use that and recreate?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with being inspired by another track. I mean, very many times I start a track, and in the studio, before I start, I say, hey, okay, today I want to make a track just like this one. A track that I love, that I heard in the club. And at the end of the day, it never turns out to sound like that track, but to use something as an inspiration is a great thing, as long as you don't copy it step by step.
Yeah, what producers are doing it for you? That's obviously on your own label, Tronic, which we'll get to. But is there anything out there that you just thinking these guys from this country are doing?
Oh, there's so many talented producers out there. I mean, like every genre has talented producers. For example, one really commercial producer that I really value is Eric Prydz. He's like an EDM artist, but I think he's by far the best EDM artist there is, and he's very original. He builds his tracks around big hooks, and this is something I try to do in my tracks as well. Rather than having like 100 different melodies, just a few big elements and build a groove around that. And I think I also try to emphasize on my tracks the arrangements a lot, that you can listen to the track from beginning to end and not be bored. A lot of techno tracks these days, they're very poorly arranged and they get boring after 2 minutes.
You mean as in like, they'll have a long lead in and then not much happens, takes a while to get going, and then
it's just very boring the way they
flat.
And then on another note, I know we're not talking about EDM, and I couldn't really care less about EDM, but something very interesting I read just the other day. What's this? There's a German guy called one of the biggest German guys. Maybe I'll remember his name in a minute. Anyways, he is like a guy that makes, is huge EDM guy. And he said that in an interview for Der Spiegel, which is like the equivalent of The Economist, like a very renowned, serious magazine, that his fans get tired of his tracks after 1 minute. No, the fact that an EDM star admits this in an interview is quite intriguing. It's like, thankfully this is not the same with techno. For us it's more like building a voyage, going up and down for hours, rather than just banging it out for half an hour, playing tracks for 1 or 2 minutes at a time.
I wonder if his fans get bored after 1 minute. I wonder how quickly he gets bored making them. Maybe it's quicker, or maybe he really likes it. I don't know.
He probably just thinks about his bank account.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, exactly. Well, which is, it's I had this conversation with
Zed. I think was this. Is an artist Zed? Does that make sense?
Z-E-D-D.
Yes, like a famous, he said that. Anyways, it's just really interesting because this EDM guy happens to be a classically trained piano player, and who played piano all his life and is really, really talented.
Yeah, it's you know what I mean. I was having this conversation with Mike Buffton from Audiotonic, another promoter from Dubai.
Yeah, I know him.
Of course, through Raxon.
Nice
of course, yeah. And we were having this conversation at Zero Gravity, one of the clubs here, and it was someone banging out some EDM music, and I said, these guys they're probably into different music and good music as well. So these guys are probably working much, much harder than people who are playing techno or something else, because they have to actually stand there and listen to music that they don't like. They're doing it for money maybe, but they've got to do that every night, when probably all they would like to do is just play some music they really did like.
Yeah, a comment I have about this is like there's another really, really famous Swedish EDM guy, and I saw a video of him playing at Ministry of Sound, and you saw him jumping up and down like what the EDM guys do.
Yeah.
But with his face, with his mouth just like totally bored. Just like you could tell he was on autopilot.
Yeah. There's a few videos of those EDM guys just looking like that. We all know who they are. I think so.
I would like to ask your opinion on that. So I've seen a few videos, and a couple of guys, they jump up on the stage. They've got a mic in their hand.
Yes.
And is that entertainment or the music? Is that how? But there's 50,000 people in a stadium, possibly in America. How did that happen to get from an underground scene to that type of commerciality of his words?
I honestly feel that these two scenes have nothing together with each other. They're two totally separate scenes.
I agree.
Those EDM guys never were underground, and they're just products. They're like boy groups. You know, they're total marketing products. They're told what to do, how to behave, and what to do. And you know, they're just in total autopilot. They go on microphones. They do pre-programmed sets, and it's a whole different thing. And this is also what I found really weird, because often I played festivals, and they have these. They have a big EDM stage, and they have a techno stage. And I always ask myself, why do they do this? Because no EDM guy will pay to go to this festival and see the techno guys, and no techno fans will go to see the EDM fans. See, in the end, they should just do two separate events. But hey, I think often promoters think they get more credible by booking, having an underground stage. But that's a whole different topic. Anyways.
I've noticed actually. Over the last, this summer, and travelling around a little bit in Ibiza, London, Amsterdam, and that gig where I met you in, where were we? Hoofddorp, was it? Or
this was in Haarlem.
Haarlem, that's where we were.
Outside Amsterdam.
Yeah, that's it. And I've noticed more and more venues with 2 or 3 or more rooms, but all techno.
Yeah, but that's Holland.
Yeah.
Holland is like, it's a country that is... really has deep musical roots.
Yeah.
Whether it is techno, house, EDM, it doesn't matter. There's lots of fans for everything, and they really are very educated.
Yeah.
So you can go, they have the Awakenings Festival that has 10 stages of techno.
Yeah.
Which is, quite amazing.
How do you choose to go to which one if you're a punter?
I don't know.
Good question. Maybe bring some dice and roll the dice.
Yeah, we were talking about this the other day here. It's we're going to, we're just looking at the option of. I don't think
we haven't released it. We can
there
say
used to be. We're not. This is. Please don't take me wrong. We're not the first people to do this, but just from being here, that the clubs don't have options of other rooms. So we were just looking at.
Well, we are planning.
But it's just not something that happens here at the moment. This tape. Sort of years.
Back in the day, for me, it was always in London and stuff. You'd have the main room, which was techno or tech house or whatever the flavour was. That
you got Fabric, you got Ministry, you had Club UK.
But then you'd have that
was.
awesome little back room, that was tech house or house music or something, and it was just a break from the main room. You'd pop in for half an hour, listen to some house music, whatever, and then back in the main room, and they were great, and that doesn't happen here in Dubai. So
that's a shame, because I think this really works, and it educates the people at the same time.
Yeah.
Like I played in Germany a few weeks ago, and I was a headliner of a techno party, and then I went into one of the side rooms and they played disco.
Yeah.
And it was going off.
Yeah.
The side room was small, but it's amazing. It's
That's
just, you can go to different rooms and be exposed to different styles of music.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really positive thing.
Yeah.
Here's something for you. Went to a club in Moscow, and on a trip, ended up in a club. Great main room. Don't ask me what club it was. Walked into the second room. Everyone's eating sushi on tables, and there were Russian actors in Baroque outfit spouting forth poetry as the second room. And it was the most bizarre thing, and I'm still talking about it to this day.
Well, it clearly left
10
an
years.
impact.
It's been brought up on the podcast before as well, actually, so it's not the first time.
To never forget how to entertain, and it was purely entertainment. You've got underground house music going off in main room. What's the option? Let's give them some sushi, and they had the white wigs. They were in the 17th century.
All right.
Buckles.
Okay.
White face painted with the red, in Russian poetry. That was the second room. I just wanted to.
It's amazing. I mean, that's the thing, and that doesn't happen too much nowadays, does it? In any club, that kind of avant-garde or abstractness or just weirdness, that used to occur so frequently in the 90s or early 2000s, you know.
Maybe it does. I'm sure it does. We're just not exposed to it so much anymore.
Possibly, yeah.
I mean, a lot of the main big clubs, they have the confetti cannons, they've got the dancers, they've got the aerobatics, you know. I mean, it's prevalent in Ibiza very much, so they do it here in a couple of the clubs as well. So that's their type of entertainment nowadays.
What for you makes a good venue, a good club? I mean, what's your favourite type of place to play?
I think the most important thing is to have a good crowd. You know, obviously the club needs to be full, and the crowd needs to be happy, you know, and if they're educated, that's a bonus, of course, but it's not a necessity, you know, because if you can be open-minded, if you like what you're presented, you can go for it, you know. So you don't need to know all the productions, blah blah blah. Obviously that's helpful, but the crowd is the single most important thing. The second most important element is the sound, of course. You know, if you have a good crowd, you still need good sound, otherwise you can't do your job. And the third element is good lighting. It's very important to have a good light, a good VJ, and because so many of the times I play gigs and I have to after I start after go to the VJ and say, hey, please turn the lights down. This is not I'm not a fashion show trying to present a certain product, you know. I don't want the spotlight on me. I just want people to get immersed into the music, and a good VJ can really help with that. You know, it's like, it's so important that a VJ does a good job and does good visuals and does the right lighting in the right moment. So
enough to enhance the music, but not take away from it, basically.
Exactly. Because often when you have a big LED wall, the VJs think, oh, it needs to be lit up the whole night. It doesn't. You know, it just. Obviously, it depends what style of music we're talking about, but for techno and underground house, it certainly shouldn't be, lit up the whole time. It should just be used selectively and in the right way.
Yeah, we try. Well, we have kind of gone always quite minimal on lighting and stuff, and we, as people and promoters, we like that dark hole kind of black underground nightclub effect, which is really where we both kind of grew up in, in our hearts musically. So that's probably what you'll find on Thursday.
Oh, cool. I mean, like, I remember a very extreme example of this. I played in Glasgow in Scotland last year in some club. It was a basement, maybe for 600 people, and they only maybe 500 people. It was quite small, but it was ram-packed, and they just had one strobe light.
Yeah,
just one strobe light the whole time. And it was amazing.
Really?
It's just so bare, raw.
Yeah.
So, sometimes. Do
you prefer that? You prefer that underground rawness to these big?
It depends. I mean, like if you're playing at a big festival and there's an amazing production, it's really impressive, and it's nice to, and a lot can be done to enhance the experience of the clubber and enhance the music.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you just go right the opposite way, it can be really fulfilling as well.
Yeah, of course. But those big festivals were a different thing altogether. And I used to do event and stage management before, quite a long time ago now. So I've had a little experience in running festivals. And I was actually having a chat this weekend gone with Mark Pickup, who's another artist in a band called Arcade 82. Out of here in Dubai, and they warmed up for the Chemical Brothers at the main stage in Abu Dhabi this weekend. And he was telling me, he said, he was on stage doing a sound check, and there was one of the stage hands walking by, and he just kind of had a little chat with him. Said, "Oh, there's a cloud over there," and immediately the guy got on the radio, goes, "Oh, let me check that for you, sir." Called the Met unit, the meteorology unit. They checked it, got back to him straight away. Said, "No, sir, it's fine. The wind's blowing at 15 knots southeast, east-southeast. That will be moving away. No chance of rain. You're good to go." And he was only mentioning something very, briefly about the weather.
Yeah.
And he was just said that is the difference of these big festivals, and especially someone like the Chemical Brothers. Every little bit is thought of and taken care of.
I would love to see them again. I said last time I saw them was like 10 years ago, and they had an amazing visual show. I can only imagine how it is now.
Well, I mean, I've seen them, probably 5 or 6 times live, I guess. I can't remember when the last one was, but I think the most memorable one was at Glastonbury for me. Those guys know what they're doing.
I mean, did they change their visuals a lot?
I didn't see them here, so unfortunately.
Good reports. Social media was.
They know what they're doing, and I think, and the Chemical Brothers were one of the first ones to really use big LED walls,
Yeah.
and have have a show built around the LEDs or intertwined.
Yeah, this projection, whatever it is,
Yes,
that,
yes.
but yeah, that whole visual stuff, and of course, just these guys are doing a live show. We were talking earlier about live artists and stuff, and a lot of these guys are great, but when you really want to look at a great live artist, you just Orbital or Chemical Brothers, and
But
these guys,
I think that's the main problem with people talking about live shows. I think live performers are not really respected that much anymore, because these days anybody with a laptop considers themselves a live show.
yeah,
You go on stage, open your laptop, you switch on Ableton, you push the space bar, and you do a few things here and there, and then you're live act.
yeah.
And of course that doesn't compare to Chemical Brothers or Orbital, who bring their Jupiter 6s and like their big synths and sequences and actually perform live,
absolutely.
arrange live,
Yeah.
and do things live.
Their stage ring's bigger than my house. It's really, when you see it, all the synths and everything.
But often, the bare
not
truth is
using it.
also that 90% of the stuff that
They're
is
not
built,
using it.
they don't use.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot is for show as well.
But I think they have. I think they have two different shows, because from what I heard, they were just playing their commercial releases and stuff on the live show. Every time I've seen them live, they play their electronic battle weapons. The unreleased stuff. All the vinyl stuff that you used to find in a record store. So I have actually wanted to go and see them, but in two minds, I'm glad I didn't see them just perform their commercial stuff, because to me that electronic battle weapon sound, which is just unreal.
No, I'm a big fan.
Oh, me too. They are great. Right, let's get on to Tronic, the label. We haven't spoken about that in depth. How did that start? Where did it come from? And what is the secret to keeping it going? What is it? 15,
I started the
20
label around 20 years ago.
20 years, yeah.
And I was at university doing my undergraduate degree, and I wanted to start a label where I could release tracks that were that house DJs could play, but techno DJs as well. And this was long before the term tech house existed.
Yeah.
This was maybe 7 years before the term tech house existed. So, and I went to the distributor back then. It was in London, called Prime Distribution. They said, "Oh, you're crazy. This is never gonna work. It's gonna be too soft for the techno DJs and too hard for the house DJs."
Yeah.
But I was very convincing, and they gave me a shot. So they gave me a P&D deal, which means that they finance everything, and they give you the profits. So yeah. After the first release, the record broke even, and 20 years later, it's one of the most successful labels, in the digital, in the techno domain.
Second biggest in the world,
According to sales,
Yeah.
it's number 2 after Drumcode.
Okay.
I mean, Drumcode is by far number 1, and Tronic is number 2. So yeah, I really can't complain.
Drumcode doing more releases than Tronic. Is that?
They do about the same amount, but
amount.
they just have a different style,
Yeah.
and a different philosophy. And they have a couple of artists that are very successful as well.
Yeah, of course.
That sell a lot. So,
Yeah.
which is fine,
Yeah. No.
I mean, like I released on Drumcode
Yeah.
as well. I did a single for them last year.
Yeah.
And Adam is a very close friend of mine, and I'm very happy for the success.
Yeah. You just did one recently, actually, or just came out. Was it Blast Off, or was that?
No,
Tronic?
that wasn't Tronic.
Which one did you do now?
I did something. What was it called? I don't remember
I know.
myself.
I know what I should know.
Force Majeure.
Force Majeure. That's it. Yeah.
This came out a couple of months ago.
Yeah. Why do you do that? Why would you release a record on Drumcode? Is it the sound? Does it fit that label?
It's good, very good question. Because I had this discussion with many other people before that have their own successful labels, but only release on other labels.
Yeah.
And I find that to be a mistake, because if you have your own label, you should release predominantly only on your own label to help it form its identity. What kind of example are you showing to the other artists if you don't even release on your own label?
Exactly.
So I release 95% of all my tracks always on Tronic, and once every 2 years I do a release on another label.
Yeah.
So last year I did a release on Drumcode, because Adam's a good friend, and I made a couple of harder tracks that I thought were maybe a little bit too hard for Tronic, but would fit on Drumcode.
Yeah.
So I sent it over to him, and I was very lucky and happy. He signed them on the spot, and yeah, they released it very well.
So that's why. Yeah.
Do you sign it, or does your label manager sign them, or does Adam sign it, or does his label manager sign them?
I mean, I have a label manager working full time. He has several working for him full time. But when I release something when I send something to Drum Code, I send it to him directly and say, hey Adam, I have these tracks for you. Listen, let me know.
Yeah.
He gets back to me and we do it. We communicate this, and once that's agreed upon, the other people will take care of the paperwork.
Did you know Adam he's from Sweden, isn't he?
Yes,
as well.
yes.
Did you know Adam from Sweden before?
I met him when I moved to Sweden in the late 90s to study at Stockholm School of Economics. That's where I met Adam, Joel Mole, Kari Lekebusch, the whole crew, and became good friends with them.
Yeah.
And very, very good guys, and I'm very happy that we're all still around doing what we love.
Yeah, absolutely.
You seem quite close-knit there with the Swedes.
Yeah, I mean,
How about the Axwells and that? Do you know them well? Because I remember Axwell when he was playing quality house music in a Ministry of Sound in the bar, and went places with the EDM. I don't know why that happened, or whether that was his choice or not.
I don't know Axwell, but I know Steve Angelo very well, and I know Ingrosso very well too. I remember working in Ingrosso's dad's studio in Stockholm in the late 90s, and Sebastian Ingrosso came to the studio as a 16-year-old back then. I was at university and he's a 16-year-old kid. Hey, Christian, look, I'm making these tracks. He has so much energy, and this was before he had done anything. So yeah, I've known these guys for a long time, and
do you all get along do you bump into these guys?
Yeah, I bump into those guys once in a while.
Festivals and things?
Yeah, I mean, like, of course we get along. We certainly don't have in-depth discussions about our taste of music, because I don't think that would work out too well. But you know what? They're doing what they do. I do what I do. They're nice people. And we definitely still get along.
What do you think it is about Sweden that produces all these great music?
I get this question all the time.
Dark nights,
in interviews.
No sunshine.
It's really interesting, because if you think about Denmark or Norway, they have the same climate as Sweden, more or less. But there's much less music coming out of those countries. Sweden has had ABBA, Roxette, and they have these producers that nobody knows that produce all of the famous American pop stars as well, like Justin Timberlake and Britney Spears. It's predominantly made by Swedish producers. So I have no idea. I honestly have no clue. I mean, sometimes in interviews I say, maybe because the winters are long, they have more time to work. But that answer doesn't really justify it either, because then if you would think about that, then Russia should have a lot of hits too.
Yeah,
but they don't. I really don't. I have no answer to that question, but it's really interesting.
So with Tronic, where do you see Tronic? And I mean, you've been going 20 years. Do you plan for the next 10, or do you plan for just 1 year, or where do you envisage? Are you going to go with, because music will change, or are you always going to be techno? I mean, I'm sorry, there's quite a lot of questions there, but
I have always the main philosophical view I've had about Tronic was that I would release tracks that I would play in my sets. And I'm not a purist, so this also includes house music, tech house, and techno. So and this is, I think, one of the main reasons why the label has been successful over the years and still is successful, because I'm not a purist and I don't really follow trends. Of course, you adapt a certain way, you have to, but I don't follow trends. And what do I have planned for the future? You really caught me off guard right now.
Well,
I'm not asking for your sales and who's going. Just in general, like where do you envisage? Like, do you think I might go down some albums, or the guys?
This is one thing I have been doing for a couple of years, doing albums, and I have already 3 albums planned for next year on Tronic.
For yourself or with other artists?
Other artists. And
right.
I use Tronic a lot as a platform to help other artists' career grow. I think it's my responsibility, partly, because I have a successful platform, to use it for other people than myself.
I couldn't agree with you more. I'm just having this thought with what I was telling you about with Anna, and that if you've got a platform, you have a little bit of a responsibility to, if there's producers here and they come to you instead of just a track and say, I've got an album, you have a duty to listen to it and generally consider it to be released.
I agree.
So that's a very good point there. I totally agree with you.
I mean, speaking of albums, I mean that format hasn't died, but it's really gone down. I mean, like, I just released an album and I did tons of PR for it. I did maybe 100 interviews, loads of media. The album in itself got really good reviews, and I think it was pretty good as well, but it didn't really sell much. And I think generally that's the case now with albums. They don't sell much, but you need albums to get attention from the media. Because if you just release another single, it's nothing interesting. But if you have an album, you have a more interesting project. So in that way, albums are still very important to develop an artist.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I think it was a great album, and I'd say, Blast Off and Explanation for me were the two highlights of that as well. Air Castle as well was really good. What was your favourite track from the album? Do you have one, or do you?
Yeah, I think Sub-Zero it's like a track that's 120 BPM.
Yeah,
it's not really fast. It's one of the softer tracks on the album, and I really like it. I did the album quite fast, to be honest. I did it in like 2 or 3 weeks. But when the creative flow is good, it's there's no wrong or right way of doing it. I mean, some artists need a year to do an album, others do it in a couple of days.
Where do you make your music? So if you're traveling so much, is this when you get back, or are you on the plane get your basses?
I don't work on planes.
No bass, like a bit an idea. No.
When I travel, I try to focus when I'm on tour traveling DJing, I try to focus everything on my DJing. That means downloading promos and just staying active that way. And when I'm in the studio, I'm fully devoted to making music.
And is this in Mallorca?
Mallorca, yes.
So when you get home?
I have also been working a lot with Weber from Brazil. He lives in Barcelona, and he has helped me a lot to mixing down all of my tracks, because I'm good, but he's much better. He's a fantastic he's a fantastic engineer. And he has been kind enough to teach me a lot and work with me and mix down my tracks, which was really, really cool.
Wow. I mean, yeah, those the couple of recent tracks that I got from Weber are stunning as well, really good. So you've got a very busy schedule for the next couple of months, right?
Yes.
Still touring on the Input Output World Tour. For
better or worse, yes.
Yeah. Where are your next stops then? Do you want to list us all the places you're going to be over the next couple of months? Or
okay, well,
I know, yeah, you sent me the list, but I'm not sure what's confirmed and not.
I started the tour 2 months ago, and it was predominantly only in Europe, so that was really good and easy, because that means I'm gone Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I come home Sunday or Monday. I'm gone 2-3 days a week.
Yep.
But last week I started my proper world tour, meaning I did gigs in Australia, and now I'm here in Dubai with you. I'm playing for you this Thursday for your first anniversary. Really looking forward to it. And then right after the gig, as you know, I'm flying to Japan. I'm flying to Osaka. Then after Japan, I fly back to Europe. I play in Spain, and then I play a festival in Austria called Raven Snow, which is for like 20,000 people in the mountains in Austria. Should be amazing. And then the next weekend, I have 4 gigs in Argentina. And then I'm home for Christmas. Then I go to India. Then I come home for Europe for New Year's Eve. And then on the 6th, I fly to South America again. Yeah. For for BPM.
Yes.
I have a Tronic showcase, so I'll be doing loads of gigs and lots of flying. And
sounds like we could have planned that better. Like you could have done Australia, Japan, India, Dubai.
You know what? But sometimes
doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way.
No.
I wish, like if you're Richie Houghton or like an Avicii, you call the shots. You say I want to be there at this and this and this date. But I'm not at that level, so I gotta take the best gigs I can, and hopefully accommodate my travel around it.
Yeah. Well, that's. You got a tough couple of months ahead. Hopefully, we'll be able to join you as well on a few of those. Absolutely, absolutely. I'll try and see if I can get down to Buenos Aires still.
But at the end of the day, I'm really not complaining. I mean, I'm traveling my ass off, but I get to see all these beautiful places. I get to meet all these interesting people. I get to eat local food, drink local wine, and and I make money doing this. Yeah, so it's like, hey, I really have a dream job.
Living the life, huh? Living the dream. Last thing, I just wanted to quickly mention, of course, is Tronic Radio. This huge success for you again, syndicated I think to over 100 stations around the world, and now on our very own Dance 97.8 FM here in Dubai. How did that come about, and how did you get it in all those different markets?
I actually waited a long time until I started my own weekly radio show. I always wanted to do it, but I was at the same time very hesitant, because I always knew that it involves a lot of work, because if you do something half-ass, it's not gonna be good. It's not worth it doing. So I 2.5 years ago I started the show. I don't know. It's 2.5, maybe 4 years ago.
What are you on? 225, 226
yes,
now.
yes.
So it's 4
God.
years.
4 years. Time flies. So I started the show 4 years ago, and I do it on a weekly basis. I think that's the best way of doing it. And I do one mix myself a month, and I have 3 guests. I do that because I find it keeps it more interesting rather than just having my own mixes.
And less workload as well, of course.
Yes, less workload, but I still have to produce each show. I still do the voiceovers, and I produce the show every week. But and sometimes it's really difficult because you got to do the show every week. It doesn't matter if you're healthy, if you're on holiday, or if you're sick as a dog. I've been sick as a dog many times, and I told my wife, I don't know how I'm gonna do this today. But you know what? You just gotta bite the bullet and do it. But it's helped me a lot. I mean, not everybody's a DJ. That means not everybody knows Tronic. Not everybody goes to Beatports and buys music. But I mean, people just like the music, and they can access this music by listening to the weekly Tronic podcast.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think one of the main things I take away from this last hour is that you've just got a motor. You work hard and you just crack on, whether it's with DJing, producing, in the studio, doing the radio show. And I think that's just the key for most things, isn't it, really? Just keep working and work hard and keep going. As
it is these days, you have to work your ass off. Yeah. Otherwise, you don't stand a chance. You really don't. And you need to be passionate. You need to like what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Any last thoughts, Toby, before we go off?
I've just been listening with a big smile. Thank you for having us here, because it's just why we started this, to hear your story.
Like I said,
I like the fact of you getting jealous over Josh Winkler at $150.
It's funny, no?
$50, yeah.
I laugh at that too.
This is what's stuck in my mind. Going, I wish I got paid $150 back in the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And just thank you for coming on, and incredibly humbled from when we started this podcast a year ago, and we had microphones sellotaped onto sticks and just our friends coming on and talking about it, and to be sat here with yourself, one of the most influential guys in the music that we love, and one of the hardest working and one of the nicest guys I've met in the music industry in a long, long time.
My pleasure. I'm really happy to speak to you today, and I think these kind of podcasts are really interesting, and more people should do them, because it gives a greater insight to people's lives and careers.
That's why we started it, just to do something original and something completely different from music. We all know we play music, we put mixes out there, but I find it interesting to hear how people got where they're going and what makes them tick and why they're doing it, and I think that's just as interesting as listening to the music sometimes.
Absolutely.
And that's it.
Do you want to just quickly mention about Dysfunktion?
Of course, So Dysfunktion this Thursday at On 42. Tickets are still available from platinumlist.net. They're available on the door as well, and I think there's maybe a few VIP tickets left, but I'm not entirely sure about that right now. We kick off at 10 p.m. and Christian's playing at midnight, so hopefully we'll see you down there. Christian, where do we send people for your stuff? So it's on Facebook, obviously iTunes, you have the Tronic podcast as well.
Yes.
So it's facebook.com/Tronic Music.
Oof, now you catch me totally off guard.
No, it is. It's just,
you know what? Just Google my name, Christian Smith, and you can find everything. It's quite easy.
There we go. Guys, check him out, check Christian out, and hopefully we'll see you all down at On 42 for Dysfunktion, our first birthday on Thursday. That's about it from me, from Toby, from Christian. Thanks very much for listening. We'll see you next time.
Ciao.
Thank you. Bye-bye.